Good morning, students. Today we will have the first class of hospitality management. I tried to do it online, but since it's not possible, I'm sending you a recorded version of my class. So we start with this chapter, Need for Management in the Hospitality Industry. So why do we need management in an organization? Now let's look at this right from the beginning. Management, or what is management? We can say it is a series of interrelated functions. And what are these interrelated functions in management? It's planning, executing, and controlling. What for? To convert the inputs or the resources of an organization into output. That is what the management tries to do. It performs the function in an organization so that we can convert the resources available in an organization into outputs or quantity of goods or services produced. So this whole task of management comprises of a number of steps, which begins with planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling function. So we can say that management is the task of planning. Then after the plans are made, they have to be executed, and followed by that, controlling whether the plans are feasible or whether they are being carried out or not. So it is an integrated process which begins with forecasting or telling us about the future. And how does the management know about the future? This is based on statistics of past records. They collect statistics and information and from the past records, maybe of their organization or of another organization, they are able to make plans for the future. And when they make plans for the future, it includes planning for human, physical, and financial resources, how best they can be used. And after they have made a plan, next is how to organize the resources available in an organization. Because every organization has to make the best plan, or which we can say is try out the best alternative. You may have certain choices when you make a plan. For example, a person with his limited resources has to make a plan, whether he will produce cars or scooters. Now, he has to go back to statistics and find out that which is more profitable for him. Hence, for this matter, what we find is that management officials will have to make the best possible choice. And this can only be made if they look into the forecasting part of it. Then after the plans have been made, next it has to be organized. That is how the resources available are going to be utilized. Then once the organization has taken place, which comprises of the senior level, the middle level, and the lower level, each with different functions. Then the command has to be given to the personnel, that is the staff members, to carry out the activities in the best possible manner. And by the way, it's a full team work. So the functions of the different individuals or the personnel have to be coordinated at each step. And certain rules and regulations are laid down for this, as how to control the activities of the staff at different levels. So we can say management is not a one-day affair in an institution. It is a continuous process, and this continuous process, what we find, is done by the managers. Once the plan has been laid out, as then followed by that, what standards have to be maintained for controlling the different resources at each step. It is a social process Why am I saying it is a social process? Because the managers themselves are not going to carry out the work. It has to be designated to different officials or staff that they have employed. So hence they have to be in interconnection with other personnel or other people. So it is not an individual, but it is a social process. Then it is a universal process where we find that all types of organization, it is needed in all types of organization, whether big or small. That's the introduction to the term management. Now, when we look at management, the first step that comes to our mind is planning. What is planning? First, we will look at what is planning, then we will see as to how planning helps us in the hospitality industry. So just now I told you, the process of management includes managerial functions, beginning with planning, and planning is the most important feature because without it, no management can be effective. So let's see, or let's define planning. Alfred and Betty have defined planning to be as a thinking process, the organized foresight, the vision based on facts and experience that is required for intelligent action. So they have said planning is a thinking process. Very correct. The organization has not yet started planning. It has not yet been formed. But still, we have to begin with planning. So planning, what we find is the main part of management, which will give us a foresight or tell us about how to make future decisions for an organization. And this is not something which is done imaginary, in an imaginary form. It is based on facts and experience, maybe not of that organization, but of another organization from where the facts and figures may have been collected. So this is very much an intelligent process, meaning that it has to be carried out in a very systematic manner, in a very scientific manner. It just cannot be just some facts laid out and you just put it together and decide to start an organization. We need to come out with facts and figures to support the decisions that are being made when a plan is being formed. So, planning is a process of deciding in advance, much before the organization has begun, what would be its objectives, and based on that, what we find is it has to be decided as to what should be the best course of action for achieving one's goals. Now, what do we mean by this best course of action? Now, to produce, for example, to produce a commodity, a factory can be set up, having lots of machines, or at the same time, we can do away with more of machines and use labor, more of labor if it's cheaper. So, during the planning process, we have to choose the method as to how output needs to be produced. For example, whether by using more of machines, which we call as capital intensive method, or using more of labor, whichever works out cheaper. So the best course of action has to be planned out as how to achieve one's goals. And what is the goal? The goal is production of either goods or services. So when we produce certain goods or services, we have to select the best possible method. And when we talk about the best possible method, it also has to be economical. What is economical? Economical means it has to be the cheapest method used so that maximum profits can be earned. It's a mental exercise that needs a lot of imagination, foresight, and sound judgment. We have to go through the points. We have to debate on the points and choose the right plan. The right judgment has to be made. It is a thinking process based on which we anticipate the future course of action. So it will help us to choose the best alternative. Just now, like I gave you the example, that with a given set of resources, you can choose whether you want to set up a car factory or a scooter factory, which is more profitable for you. So you have to make this choice, because resources in this world are not unlimited. Whether it is for the richest country of the world or for the smallest country, underdeveloped countries, everybody has to make a choice and choose the best alternative as to what type of goods needs to be produced. Which are your strongest resources? You always go in for the best possible manner and you try to utilize those resources which you have got more in number with you. And this choice is made through planning. Like, for example, I'll give you an example here. Let's talk about a country called Japan. A very small country where we find that they don't have much of land. In this case, Japan had to make a choice because it has got limited resources, that is land. So, what to do? Should they use this land for agricultural purpose? Then, by selling those agricultural goods, the country cannot become rich. So Japan, on the other hand, made this choice that it would like to go in for production of capital-intensive goods, where they need less of land, that is, set up factories. Now next comes the question, what about food? They decided that they would be earning more money when they produce goods, capital-intensive goods, and export it to the rest of the world. And with that money, they would be able to buy agricultural goods like food, which is much cheaper. Hence, it would be more profitable for them to produce electronic goods. And with that money, they earn through exports. They decided to import food, which is definitely a better choice, as they knew that they cannot do both the things because they have got limited resource, that is land. So in this way, I just gave you an example, in this way, organizations also have to make a plan on the basis of as to which is their, what you call, strong point, or which all resources do they have more in quantity with them. India, for example, always plans out of choosing a method where we can use more of labor, because we are a country with a huge workforce where labor is much cheaper. Because during the planning process, if we go for buying more of machinery, etc., then definitely the cost of production would increase. So this is how we make a choice. These are some examples that I'm giving you as to how the method of production needs to be chosen. That you go for your strong points. That is, which all resources are more in quantity with you in comparison. You don't want to choose definitely the ones which you have less, as then the process of production would work out to be expensive. Now let's move on to the subtopic, features of planning. First one, planning is goal-oriented. That means every organization, when it is set up, has certain goals which clearly explains as what it would like to achieve in an economical manner. So planning helps an organization to fulfill its objectives because each objective is linked with the goal of the organization, which will decide as how fast the organization can get the results, that is, produce the maximum quantity of goods or services in an economical manner, means at the cheapest cost of production to earn profits. Next, number 2 point, planning is future oriented. Planning, as I was just been telling you, is based on past facts of the same organization or of other organization, from where the statistics or figures have been taken so that they can help in preparing a chart to manage the future in the most advantageous way. So it is very important for anticipating or understanding the future events. So anticipation of future events or forecasting can only be done if a plan is made. So another very important factor which has to be remembered while planning is that through the process of planning, a future forecast is being worked out for the organization so that they can earn the maximum profits in the shortest possible time. Planning is an intellectual process. That means it involves creative thinking. Planners, mind you, are not ordinary people. They have worked or they have been specialized to make decisions which are creative. And it is not guesswork at all. A logical and systematic method is chosen to come to a proper analysis, which may be quantitative or qualitative. And here, when they do this intellectual process, I think you have come across this word earlier also, they do a SWOT analysis. So what is the SWOT analysis? They look into the strength, weakness, opportunities and threats that will be faced by the organization through the methods that they are choosing or through the paths that they are choosing. So hence this creative analysis will help the organization to identify or choose the correct opportunities and how they should face the threats which may arise during the process of working. So planning helps us to do a SWOT analysis of the project that is undertaken. It is a primary function as it serves the basis for other functions of management. Very true. Primary means the most important. It is the most important function based on which organizing, staffing, directing, control can be taken up. Unless there is planning, the other functions of management will not fall into place. Planning is pervasive, meaning all types of organization and all levels of management need to do planning. As I was trying to mention to you a bit earlier, that management is divided into top management, middle management and lower level of management. And this process of planning has to be done for each step of management, whether it is the top management, whether it is the middle management or the lowest level of supervisors for the daily activities. The top management makes the overall plans, which are then executed to a certain extent by the middle management. And lastly, the work is done by the lower level of management, who perform the daily activities. Next, planning is a continuous process. Don't think that once the plans have been made for an organization right at the start, the planning process is over. No. It is a continuous process which will carry on. Because when assumptions about the future do not come true, the plans have to be revised. Here we must remember that planning should not be very rigid. Plans made for an organization has to be flexible. Because at times, if the plan fails, it should be made in such a manner that the easily the organization can shift to another plan. The planning process done should not be done in such a manner that it is rigid, that you cannot make any changes. If needed, if circumstances arises in future, then the plan should be flexible. Otherwise, the organization will have to close down. So plans are made in such a manner that they can be accepted in the future too, with changes. Now, why are plans made? Made for efficiency. Planning is a process which brings about efficiency in an organization. And for this, an alternative course of action must be ready. If, for example, certain goals cannot be achieved by a certain method of production or through certain decisions, then definitely there should be scope to make changes so that a person who manufactures cars can easily switch over to some other alternative product. So the process of planning has to be very efficient. And for this reason, alternative goals have to be there for every organization. Because after all, as I told you right at the start, it is a forecast. Like we have weather forecasts. Sometimes they may say it's going to be a rainy day and we do see the sun in the sky. So in the same way, forecasts cannot be 100% correct. So if forecasts are not 100% correct, definitely the organization, there should be steps in an organization where easily changes can be acceptable. Because we cannot compromise with the efficiency of an organization. So alternative plans must be there in the process of planning. So I hope you have understood the features of planning. I've explained it to you in a very simple format. In case you have any difficulty, you can put up questions to me in the WhatsApp group. I now move on to the next subtopic, importance of planning. So why must organizations plan? So right from the beginning, I've been telling you today that planning is the main way of achieving or establishing goals, and how to attain these goals can only be done through planning. It's not only making goals and then leaving it out to the organization to carry out the goals. No. The planning process involves that how these goals are going to be achieved also has to be spelled out. Steps have to be mentioned as to how the goals of an organization, which they have forecasted, has to be achieved. So, for this, there are two parts of planning: goal statements and action statements. Goal statements as to what should be the goals of an organization, and action statement means how to achieve these goals through proper action of the organization. At the end of the day, how to achieve these targets, which the managers hope to attain. Certain action statements will reflect as to how the organization moves forward to attain the goals. So the action statement will spell out how the goals are to be achieved within the limit of given resources. Because I've been telling you, resources are not unlimited. So with the limited resources, whether it's a country, whether it's what you call an organization, whether it's a family business, a small retail business, everywhere we find that actions have to be planned out for achieving the goals, either of the big organization or the small one. of the big country or the small country. So it is an intellectual activity. It is difficult to see managers plan because most of this activity unfolds in the minds of those doing the planning. While planning, managers have to think about what has to be done, who is going to do how and when. So the planning process comprises of these question marks, question words I would say: what, when, how, who is going to do them to achieve the goals. And mind you, the manager is not the planner. There are special groups or special people, personnel, who undertake this work of planning. Like for example, in the case of our country, India, we have a full-fledged planning body, which earlier used to be called as the Planning Commission. But now, recently, the name has been changed by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and he calls it Niti Aayog. So a country too needs a proper planning process. Now you will say, let the planning be done for once and for all and let it continue. No, it doesn't happen. Because targets keep changing. The targets of India have changed over the years. Earlier, when we became independent, the main target of our country was how to move from an agricultural sector to an industrial sector. But today we have achieved a part of it. So the targets of our government has changed, hence the plans have also changed. Today more stress is being given by the government to how to improve education and healthcare in the country. So targets change over the years, not only for the country, but also for different organizations. So for over the years, we find that we cannot have the same target. Hence, plans cannot be made once and for all. They have to be constantly monitored. As I told you a few minutes back, that plans have to be flexible because the goals may change. Planners think both retrospectively and prospectively. What does this mean? They look at past events and how to utilize, based on that, they make future plans or what future opportunities are there. And when they think of the future opportunities, they keep in mind what all threats can be faced. So here, what we find is that a planner has to be both retrospective as well as prospective. Retrospective meaning he has to look into the past statistics, and based on this past statistics, he has to plan the future opportunities, keeping in mind what all threats can be faced. So planning involves organizational strengths and weaknesses. Now every organization has its strength as well as its weakness. Just now I was giving you the example of the country Japan. So what is the plus point of Japan? Huge intellectual, capacity of the people of Japan. But at the same time, there is some other resources, they have been short. They have shortage of some other resources. What's that? Land. So they've decided that they will utilize this strength to become a developed nation, and thought of a method as how to overcome their weakness, that is this agricultural products which is not available with them, they will buy imported from another country. So every organization, every country has to look into its strength and weaknesses and try to see how they can overcome the weaknesses and gain through the strengths and utilize their strengths. And this can only be possible with correct planning and proper decision. Planning for organizational events internal or external environment, should be an ongoing process. Planning is not short term, it's a long term process. As I was mentioning to you, countries, 60, 70 years, they keep on planning as the targets keep on changing. So in the same way, organizations too must keep in mind that it is an ongoing process. Part of it, of course, is daily, weekly, monthly, but at the same time, the different tasks does not need the involvement of everyone from the top management to the lower management, the bottom line every day. But at each step, the managers have to come and they have to make this decision as to how this process of planning can carry on. Planning should be continuously monitored. It cannot be let off. Once the plans are made, the managers and organizational members should check out the plans and accommodate or come up with changing conditions, new information, new situation that will affect the organization's future. So all organizations which have been in existence for many years need to become digitalized today because they have to look into the future. So they cannot look back and stay and continue with the old methods. They have to accommodate